Tonight, happy first day of spring. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public participation. Do we have anybody from the public?
You mean complaint?
Complaint, question, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Just go, compliment.
Compliments are good.
I'm the complainant.
Go ahead and, but that's going to the people at home, Tim, so make sure you state your name for the record.
Yeah.
And you can't go too far with it, the mic's not.
Well, I want to make sure you guys don't have to bend your neck and hurt yourself.
It's
Is
on.
this on?
Yeah. Yes.
It is.
Okay.
Not for here, but for at home.
Oh,
Yeah.
so they can hear me loud and
Yeah,
clear?
so go ahead and say your
The
name.
ones that are watching,
Yeah,
they don't come to the meetings, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, can I be introduced to?
Absolutely. Diana
Well-
Danito, Director of Student Services.
yeah. Tim, just state your name though for the
Okay,
record.
Tim Moody.
I know you, but the record keeper didn't know you.
Want to know where I live? 19 Cortlandt Street in Farmington. Okay.
Cynthia Sparks, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Ruth Ellen Vaughn, Superintendent.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Joel
So I
Shagnon?
know Joel and,
Penny Moran.
Joe Petrie.
Angie Cardinal.
yeah.
Stan Frieda.
Mr. Frida, yes. I want to know what's happening. Why our taxes are going up and not going down when you lost all these kids to Middleton? And there was a reason why we lost all these kids to Middleton. I know that. Penny knows, right?
I do.
Yeah. And Kathy and the other one. Well,
And Mr. Petrie.
I'm not happy with the fact that I'm on a fixed income. And there is older people in this town, Mrs. Cardinal. I'm one of them. And there's a lot of us still here, okay? I want you to understand that. Some of us have
Understand,
got
sir.
fixed incomes. We can't afford any more. And I can't understand why this school cannot run on less money. And why, and the other one that decides everything, and the school board asks her or has her do the whole
Budget.
thing of, yeah. That's my complaint, one of them. And I want to know why our taxes are going up $2.50 or whatever it is. And I asked you before I voted for you, and you were there too. And you both told me that you watched the taxes. Well, I don't see that happening, you two. Okay? That's exactly what you told me. To me, I consider that a lie, okay? You weren't honest with me, you two, okay? Sorry, I'm outspoken. I can't help it, but the truth is the truth. Everyone needs to get their heads together and sit down and figure out something better than what we've got. You got to get rid of that place up there, way too much money. You got other places here. You got places down in the middle school. Don't you think? Do you agree with me? No.
This is your opportunity to comment.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going on?
That's entirely your prerogative and up to the board
Okay.
chair.
Well, I'm just letting you know.
What you're probably not going to see tonight, Tim, is everybody responding individually to any kind of claim or concern that you have.
Okay.
We're going to listen.
Okay.
I
hope-
You're right in saying that the budget is prepared, it starts basically at the teacher and administrator and staff level.
Right, and I understand
Goes
that.
through some series there, comes through the administrative team to Miss Vaughn, and then she puts together a proposal to us, which happened in like November, December. We met every Monday night and had some pretty heated debate just amongst board members about what could be afforded and how much was appropriate, what was needed and what wasn't, and arrived at a number that was not satisfactory to the budget committee, they made some additional cuts.
Yeah.
It was a number that was satisfactory to some people at deliberative session and some people that it was not. And there was some back and forth on what we were gonna arrive at for a number there. And now we've arrived at a budget number to go in front of the taxpayers, and then we have a default budget that goes in front of the taxpayers. But I'm hearing, we're hearing you, I mean,
And then your husband, $93,000 more. Wow, you know? I don't understand you guys. You can, there's an old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. It's the same way with kids. You can bring them into school and you can teach them everything you can. It depends on them and their education from at home, starting from when they're this small. That's what I think, okay? And another thing too, these janitors' raises and the teachers' raises, due respect that everyone likes to have a raise, I do too. But I lived off what I made, and I didn't make much, but I made it. I didn't go to 17 years of school. 12 years was enough for me, I thought. But you got to understand, you guys, that you're going to be there someday, like where I am. And did I vote for much back when my kids were in this school? No, because the same way with the fire state. We are not Boston, we're not Wellesley, Mass, we're not the Cape, we're not Rochester, we're not Dover. We're Farmington, a little school with 6,000 people here. And we've lost how many students? Understand that, you guys. I mean, gee whiz, you know? Like I said, every time it goes up, I lose money, and my grandchildren, for their education, loses money because I can't give it, okay? And I'm sure others feel the same way that I do. Why should I be complaining? I have no kids here, but what it is taxes. Now, if I was a millionaire, you probably wouldn't see me here, you know. But understand that there's not very many rich people in this town. And you got people leaving this town, just like they are up in Middleton. Middleton built a school because of the last superintendent we had here, and we all know. And I could really go deep into that, but I'll leave it alone. It's old stuff, and I'm not happy about that, because you people didn't stand behind me when the man lied, okay? It's not you. It's you three and the other two. And I felt as though and I waited time, let it cool down. That's why I'm in here. But I think I'll be in here more often, because I want to know what's going on. I want to know, you know, like, the schools are dirty. Okay, I know, I cleaned the school. This school's starting to get real dirty now. I just noticed out there when I was walking around. I know your middle school's pretty dirty. And they say no kids left behind where you are when the parts per million in your schools are really over the limit. They are in Milton. I know. And there's a book I can show you what it causes, what it does, and that's what's happening probably in that middle school. And you know, I didn't open my mouth out there in Milton because I got let go because I knew too much. That's why I got let go. And it was the way it was. And it's done, it's over. But anyway, that's all I'm asking. I'm telling you, like, helping you realize that we're not rich people in this town. And we all work for a living. But understand, there's other people that are suffering, that are probably sleeping in shacks. And I've seen one down in Rochester, where the gun place was, right where, I can't remember the name of the gun place. You're going to hear from me every once in a while with complaints, and I look at the book there, the book that you have for the town school book there.
The school report.
And hopefully some of them are not fudged in to pay for something else like they did in Milton, because I worked in Milton and I saw their book and I couldn't believe where they fudged a certain amount of money in electrical, and they had nobody in there that year. I was there, I know prices. I'm a builder, clerk of the works, so I know about these schools, you know. it wouldn't pass my inspection at all. I want my schools to look like a hospital if I had anything to do with it, but I don't. I'm done, retired, so, like you, Joe, But anyway, due respect to all of yous. I know you do the best you can, but understand that, you're gonna be my age someday, and the town's gonna go up more and more and more. And the thing of it is, people are jumping over Farmington, and I've said it, I don't know how many years ago, even to the board down there, the budget committee, they're jumping over Farmington. They have been for years, and they're gonna continue until somebody comes in that can buy that lot. It's got more than enough money to tear out all the rock and everything else on the other side to build some nice businesses, And I don't believe they help your tax, but anyway. I just want to thank you for introducing and all of you and for listening. And I just hope, and I would appreciate it if you could make sure you keep an eye on the taxes, please. They heard me too down there, the town, and they said, why aren't you complaining about the school? Capella. I said, that's my business. I said, right now I'm here, so I'll be up to the school eventually. So I hope that, hopefully we all learned something tonight about.
I'd like to make one suggestion.
Yeah.
The trend that I see a lot of times with folks who aren't necessarily in support of the budget is that you kind of hear from them sometimes a little bit later in the process.
Yeah.
I would encourage you and anyone else who isn't happy with the budget that we came up with to next year's cycle, because now we're at a point where we're going to vote on one or the other, right? We're going to either get one or we're going to end up with one. So next year in November, when we start having our meetings, and sometimes, like I said, they're weekly, and we start having our budget hearings or our budget discussions, it would be beneficial to have somebody like you sitting here being able to ask questions and express that concern, because then, Tim, it's a little more fresh on the minds of board members as they're arriving at a budget that, they want to put forward. I'm not saying it's fallen on deaf ears now, but we're not going to prepare a budget now until next fall. But we do hear you, and I appreciate you.
I just want you to take into consideration, we have to drop some things to be able to survive here. And this young lady is the one that will probably be with us for a little while longer, I imagine. Like I said, we don't have that many kids, and your teachers, you hate to take a job from somebody. I had it taken from me a couple of times, and once was before Christmas, and it was okay. I dealt with it. They'll find a job. But when you've got only 5 kids in a classroom, probably, I'm sure you've only got 5 or maybe 10 in some classrooms now, opposed to maybe when you had 25 or 30 in here. I know I was in a class of 23. So, and there's 2 teachers in that classroom that's taking care of. I don't know, I'm just what I hear from other people outside. Okay? You understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah, try to, anyway. All right. So I forgot my hearing aid, so I couldn't hear anything you said, Joe. No, just kidding, just kidding.
Well, luckily we brought ours and we heard you.
But I want to thank you for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, due respect to you, you do the best you can, but I'm going to be up here, and I will speak out. Sometimes I may sound a little stupid, but that's okay. That's part of me. All right.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Do a good job, kid. Can I go home now, Joe?
You can if you want. You're welcome to stay. Anybody else from the public would like to say anything? No? Okay. Let's go into approval of minutes. February 6th, non-public session 7. So moved by Mr. Petrie. Do I have a second? It says 6 on the agenda, 7 though is on the minutes, so it's
Sorry,
actually
it
7.
should be
No,
7.
Yeah.
It should
It's
be
not sealed, the question was whether or not you would like it to be.
6.
Do we want to,
Oh, is it here?
Let's hold off then.
That's a 6. Okay.
We have to discuss these in non-public? Is that what we're saying?
Oh,
Well,
well,
we
we're
did
just
that.
seeing them
If you
now.
don't bring up the issue.
well, we just got these ones.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
packet
Can we
that
hold
you
off
just
on this
received
one?
because they were.
Okay, so do I have a motion to table then for non-public discussion?
Oh, do we have to table if it's not on?
Well, they're on the agenda.
You're
All
okay.
right, almost table.
Yeah.
Move to table by Mr. Frieda, second by Mrs. Cardinal. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Was that all the ones in this packet, or the rest of them?
Oh, I think it was non-public just for that, right? But was that a motion for all of them? To
Yeah,
table
all of
the
the ones in this
packet?
packet, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the packet. Okay, I'm sorry, misunderstood that. You get that
Oh, was it one
direction?
motion?
Yeah.
Everybody all set with their vote on that?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
packet?
yeah,
Okay.
we just got that one.
All right.
So it's the first,
I know, now I'm trying to figure out which ones we're at.
Should be non-public session 3 is the first one I have on my digital copy.
Non-public session 3 from March 6th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Petrie, second by Mrs. Cardinal. Any discussion on these? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
So I have this
March 6th, public session was the ones we
Yeah.
briefly spoke about earlier. We're going to have to table
Table
those
those.
for
So
Yeah.
move
a
to
motion
table.
to table by Mr. Frieda, second by Mr. Petrie. All those in favor of tabling? Aye. Okay. Are we on March 13th, non-public 1, sealed?
That's
Isn't
in
it
the
part of that packet?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's in the packet.
So the non-public session 2.
Motion for March 13th, non-public session 2.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Petrie. Any errors or omissions, changes on these?
some of my changes might be something that we would want to discuss in non-public as well.
Okay, Mrs. Cardinal's indicating she has some changes, but may have to be done in non-public.
Motion to table.
Motion to table by Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Frieda. All those in
Okay.
favor? Aye.
Is that all the minutes?
Sorry, wasted this time.
Public session
Was March
one.
13th in here?
Like 13.
I think
session
so,
one?
and that was just, we opened and then went straight to non-public in.
But that was in the
session
packet, so
13.
these were already tabled.
Right,
Okay.
right, because the public session was just going to non-public.
Okay, so on new
March
business.
13 public isn't in
So,
here?
yeah, you can do the public
No,
ones.
it's in the,
It's in here.
it's in here.
Oh, I thought you said it was in the
Okay.
packet, I'm sorry. Okay, do I have a motion?
So,
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Petrie. Discussion?
oh, look good.
Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I have any abstentions? 2 abstentions. They were not present for that meeting. New business. We do have recognition of scholar athletes on the agenda. We've actually put that off to a future meeting because not all of them could be in attendance this evening. And actually, Mr. Petrie, I believe it's going to be the meeting of April
17th?
17th, because they all can't make the next one either. So I know that you're planning a presentation, so you can let Mr. Horgan know as well. Financials.
So Mrs. Verville will not be with us tonight, so I do have some line items that she has sent a memo on that are part of the general fund reports. Just some variances that had not been corrected in what you have been sent, but it gives the reasons for. So
Okay.
this gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines of explanation. Beyond that, I mean, the financials, there were a lot, it's just 9 lines that she saw that may have questions raised, so she put that here.
Okay.
You had a fairly hefty financials packet. I don't know if you have specific questions that you wanted me to pass on to Mrs. Verville. If it's not something that I can answer off the top of my head tonight, I'm happy to look at that, or if you want to bring that back on the 3rd either way. She had a family emergency and needed to leave this afternoon.
Is this
so-
something we should see now? Or
So
you-
I can certainly give this to you so that you have it in case there are any questions that you had on these lines specifically, they may answer them.
I took them apart. There was one line that's not listed on here.
Okay.
171, tuition special ed, it was overexpended by $5,679.
We just went over that today. We needed a transfer because a student had to move from one special education placement to another. So there's a transfer that's going to occur out of the special ed private line that will reimburse that. So it
Okay.
will no longer be
It will-
deficient.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Petrie?
Yeah, how many out-of-districts are behavioral versus,
I'd have to look to tell you for sure. I mean, we have some students that might be autistic and then also have behavioral pieces that go along with it. That might be simply just behavioral, but have, other health impairments that go along with that as well. So I'd have to look for you, but I could certainly look and get back to you.
like,
Is it safe to say, though, that a majority of them probably have a behavior element?
Yeah, it is safe to say, because that's typically what will make the public school not the least restrictive environment anymore. So, yeah, there will often be some behavior component. But certainly I can take a look at that and get back to you.
also, is there any place around that specializes in autism?
The Monarch School has a very strong autism program. Other out-of-district placements also serve students with autism. Again, it has to do with the degree of severity. So for instance, we still have a number of students in district that present with autism and have, what might be considered, a fairly significant need, but we're able, through the services that we have and the interventions, to keep them in district. We have a growing younger population of students with autism as well, and our plan is to work with them early on in regards to communication and behavior and, those physical pieces in terms of OT and PT, so that they can be maintained in our district.
Mrs. Cardinal, did you have
A couple of things. Well, one thing that stood out to me, it's lines 127 and 128. I don't know if this is a recent adjustment that was made, or not, because I didn't reference back our old reports, but $5,000 were made in adjustments on both of those lines, amendments to the budget. So I just wanted to understand
Okay, I will certainly,
the areas special education substitutes on 2 different schools. And then the other, I couldn't really find it. It didn't stand out to me. I was expecting it to stand out, is the snow removal costs. I'm sure we're still paying invoices.
yes, they have not, they've come in much lower than we had anticipated, which is good news.
Yeah.
What we have encumbered will more than cover the last storm, and hopefully it will be the last storm. I'm
What you said last
Please?
time.
I did, and the meteorologist refused to listen to me, but
Stella had a way of.
I'm hoping that we can put snow removal off the radar soon, if not already. But we will be in good shape unless we have the storm of the century, and I'm really hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Should knock on wood or something.
Yeah.
I already did. Okay, other questions? I think we should put financials on the next agenda.
Yep, I'm happy to do so.
Revisit.
She was very apologetic for not being here, and I told her that.
You can make a note of that, Mrs. Cardinal, that we're going to have financials on the next agenda. Primex cap offer.
Yes. And I will speak to this as well. This was in your packet. Primex has offered us an opportunity to essentially put a cap on our workers' compensation program that guarantees that our premiums will be held at 8% regardless of what our claims against that would be in the next 3 years, and if our actual claims end up being less than that, it would be reflected. So it's a top cap, but it's not a bottom. So if the actual is less than that, then we'll pay the lower amount. If our claims would have exceeded that, we're still held at that level for the next 3 years, which certainly makes budgeting much easier to do so that we have an indication of where we are.
Move to accept this amendment to the contract.
Okay, we have a motion to accept it.
Oh, wait a minute, I
Question?
had a question.
Well, can we get a second, just then we'll
For
just
discussion?
have discussion.
Okay,
Second by
that's
Mr. Frieda, Mr. Petrie.
Right, what's been the rate of claims in the past?
Well, if we talk about past prior to my tenure, it's been fairly high, and that's one of the things that I'm going to bring up as I'm talking about budget going into next year. We do have some cost savings that it looks like we're going to realize because of some claims that have been settled or discontinued, and our lack of additional claims in some other areas that we're on a trend of improvement. But do I have the exact of what our rate was prior to my being here? I don't. I know that it was significant and it wasn't all under Primex. So.
Any other questions?
I'm going to support this one because I took a look in the public records that I could research. There are 3 school districts in the area and 1 city who also adopted this CAP program, and we're getting a little bit better of a rate than them. I couldn't find one that got better than this offer.
Okay, all set to vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Chromebooks bid approval.
We have an opportunity through some grant funding that we have. We've been looking at moving toward a more one-to-one environment with our English classes, in particular at the high school, using Google Classroom, using the Google Apps, and we have an opportunity to purchase a fairly large number to get that really close to one-to-one for the English classrooms. It doesn't mean these are going home. It means that at least within classrooms, we have the opportunity for students to be working on a non-shared device as they're working on essays, doing research, that sort of thing. So I'm going to let Mr. Jazokis and Mr. Bailey give you some of the specifics, and I do have, I'll pass this down to you too. This is some of the warranty information on the Chromebooks that goes along with what you had in your packet, but it's a little bit more specific.
All right.
All right. So what we passed out was a list of the reasons why we decided to choose some Chromebooks. We've been talking about refreshing the computers in the district for a number of years, and we've actually put our heads together and found that we can get more Chromebooks than we can get laptops at the prices that we've been buying laptops for. Actually, this is something I've been wanting to try for a while, but so there's a number of reasons why Chromebooks we feel are fit in the district. One of those obviously being the cost that I just mentioned, but there's some functionality items that we were really interested in. For one, being a Google Apps for Education district. You know, the Google Chromebooks, for those of you who may not know, are built around the Google Chrome browser, and they made an operating system out of it. With that said, it's a very streamlined set of applications that, because of that, allows the device to boot up a lot quicker than the laptop. And one of the complaints that we've had, you know, in classrooms is computers Windows computers that are getting slow. And so we re-image them year after year, and they're good for a little while, and so on and so forth. So these seem to, the Chromebooks seem to run a little bit better because of that streamlined set of applications. And also, as a complement to that, it also allows the battery to last a lot longer. So instead of getting 2 or 3 hours out of a charge on a battery and then putting the laptops back in the cart, Chromebooks, today's Chromebooks last anywhere from 10 to 14 hours. So the student can get all day out of it and then let it charge at night. That alone is a huge benefit, in my opinion.
And more importantly, rather than the student necessarily using that all day, it could be used from this class, passed off to the next class, the next class, the next class, without the downtime in between of having to be recharged between classes. So if a teacher has a cart in the classroom, 6 sessions or 5 classes, one right after another, there's not the lag time in between, and that's huge.
One of the things that I've been looking at just recently is the startup of the smarter balance testing in the other schools. And there was I'm trying to remember when it was, just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we were doing STAR testing at Henry Wilson. And we didn't know what to expect with the Chromebooks. But we were pleasantly surprised because the students were done testing before the teacher ever realized that, they were even halfway through, yet alone done.
Because they were used to waiting for the login time, and they didn't have to do that. It was up and running and off to go. And that's something that, teachers have been reluctant to use the technology because of the amount of class time that gets wasted waiting for it to wake up and be ready. And if you have students sitting idle in front of a computer, they get creative, and that's not always good. So.
And one of the other things that we're looking at from the high school perspective, as Rick said, it was the functionality of the Chromebooks. In our English department, as you're aware, we've sort of changed the way in which we go about doing business, and a lot of it is competency-based. It's portfolios at the end of the quarter, or the end of the semester or the year, where kids can show what they've learned, how they've learned it in a variety of different ways. One of the things that they're doing now, and is part of frustrating the teachers and the students, as Ruth Ellen pointed out with their charging and booting up, is that they're doing blogging where, when they used to do a prompt in the morning or whatever, they would write it on a piece of paper, they do their prompt, they hand it in. Now they blog, they get on the site, they write their little warm-up, that goes directly to the teacher. The teacher can then provide feedback right away, doesn't have to necessarily go back and revisit that, but also with the writing process. Kids are sending it via Google Docs at night, and the teacher's able to respond that night. It keeps track of the revisions that are there, so that it's not that paper pencil. With our freshman seminar classes, we have all 4 of our teachers teach a freshman seminar course. It's about 15 to 20 days in length, because it's a semester long. And those kids rotate through those 4 teachers throughout the first semester. And that allows each teacher to sort of be an expert in a particular area. The problem that we run into is that when they go from teacher A to teacher B, it's sort of, here's all that paperwork and everything else, where this is going to allow us to utilize the Chromebooks. It's going to be on the cloud, so there's a place where everybody can go get it. They don't have to worry about saving, because it's going to save automatically. When you look at some of the group projects, right now, kids would save it, then share it. Now they can go right into those Google Docs and be able to share collaboratively, and they don't have to worry about where it is. They can get it, come in here and get it. They can be at home and get it. So it's really going to help streamline that process. The English teachers also want to be able to create assessments online so that kids can then go and get it. And if you think about the way competency works, not every kid's going to be the same spot at the same time. So this is going to be allowing them to create those assessments, and then kids, when they're ready to go in and get them, they can go in and get the assessment, take the assessment, and then the other English teachers are going to be able to see that work and identify where the kid's struggling and not struggling. So I think it's a good opportunity for us. Like Rick said, we're going to start off with our English department, because that's where our kids have to be all 4 years. Our hope is to be able to continue to grow that, and someday possibly a one-to-one situation with that.
And also to cut down on our printing costs, because as English is one of those courses that is particularly print heavy if you have to have everything in paper. But to be able to take an essay through multiple revisions of a draft and have all 15 to 40 pages in the cloud instead of part of a personal weightlifting program for the teacher carting it back and forth at night, that's important. And it also helps significantly with our printing costs, which I would like dearly to see curtailed. Although, when you look at here, it doesn't always look like that, but I really am trying. So.
Questions, comments?
When did we get weightlifting?
That's just part of what a teacher does, it's okay.
Yeah, I really like the thoroughness of this presentation. Thank you all very much. As far as asset security goes, just keeping track of these 75 devices, are they going to be serial numbered and signed
Yes.
out and signed back in? How does that track work?
I use a piece of software that is made specifically for tracking devices on the network. My only problem with it is it doesn't track the Chromebooks. However, Google has its own management console that I can then turn and have all that information that I would normally have.
The other piece is that because a number of these there'll be a small portion that will be district funded, but the majority of it will be grant funded. So they will receive asset tags both through the district and through the grant. Those will be tracked. There will be carts assigned to particular classrooms. It's not going to be, just random, grab something and go. It's going to be these are for this classroom, these are for this classroom, so that we know where they are. And teachers will be responsible for, okay, I have my set and we're going from there.
And even now, a lot of our kids will use the same laptop in that classroom because it builds the user profile so that when they log in,
It's a little bit quicker.
it doesn't go as long trying to figure out, if somebody different grabs it, it goes back and tries to create the new profile. So kids will say, okay, number one's mine. And the teacher has done that as well because it does speed up the process.
I guess the long and short of it is they have, on the Chromebooks, they have the apps that they need, not the apps that
They don't.
just get in the way and distract them.
Slow it down. Thank you.
Mr. Frida?
Why the insistence on it being a Dell Chromebook as opposed to some of the other brands?
I was looking at all the different brands, and when I was looking at the Dells, I noticed that they use the same power cord as all our laptops. The price-wise, they were roughly the same. All the 11-inch Chromebooks with those specifications only vary a few dollars between manufacturers. And so I figured, let me back up. So the power cords we could also use with the Chromebooks, and we're not tied down to any one particular cart, so to speak, or somebody that may have their charging cable out. The other thing is that Dell offers a longer warranty than any of the other manufacturers.
And we did discuss it at length. It wasn't just a whim.
Oh, yeah, right.
Anything else? You probably said at the beginning, what was the district cost versus grant? Did you say it?
I didn't.
Okay.
The district cost will end up being under $3,500. The balance is in two different grants. One is the SIG grant and one is the Focus and Priority grant. Is that correct?
Okay.
So far, how many computers have we got?
It's roughly 76 Chromebooks.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Frida, second by Mrs. Cardinal. Any further discussion?
Can we name which of the proposals? Is it for the Dell from
Certainly, yeah.
the first? There's 4 proposals here.
There are 4 proposals because we put it out to bid, and so
Yeah.
you have bids in front of you. What I gave you just a moment ago too is kind of a comparison
Yeah.
of the features of the different warranty information, because that's really the biggest difference. And my understanding is that it's Dell and Gov Connection that have the most similar warranties. They both will do the the Pro Support Plus essentially all the way down. And while they're not configured exactly the same way within the way the RFP came back, the difference, or what kind of aligns them, is the fact that you have the parts that are listed under the warranty match all the way down. This part's covered under both. And so for that, they are pretty much the same. So in that, the better warranty with the lower price would be the Gov Connection one.
So do you want that in the motion?
Can you add
I'll
that
amend that to
specifically to your motion?
select
That's
the
correct, right?
Gov Connection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, okay, Mrs. Cardinal with that?
Yes, yes, I support that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Budget recommendations, closing the gap between the school board adopted budget and warrant article number 3. Operating budget.
The operating budget. So as I had discussed with the board briefly over the last few weeks, we have a gap between what the proposed budget was that went to warrant article 3 and what we had proposed, what went through the budget committee, what went through the deliberative session, and then what's ended up on the warrant. And the gap is $272,851.
Excuse me, is that we're talking about the 17 budget?
This is the 18 budget.
Oh,
This
this
is,
is for
this is
17,
what's
18.
going to
Yeah.
vote on the
It's
28th.
the 18 budget.
And so, knowing that we had anticipated that tonight, we would have had a vote, and at this point, we would know whether we had the default budget or the operating budget to work with, and then be moving forward. We don't know that yet. That snowstorm again. So, what we're looking at tonight, because we still don't have the contract settled, we don't know, and some of that will determine the number of sections, the number of classes that we're looking at. There are some pieces that are wrapped up in, and for me to start discussing how many sections and where that goes, I'm going to talk about stuff tonight. I'm not going to talk about staff.
Right.
When we get to our next meeting on the 3rd, by that time, we will have the vote, and we'll have the staff discussion, and by that time, the stuff should have taken care of itself. So what I have for you is my initial set of cuts by budget line. The only two pieces that I don't have specific budget lines for are there's one staff position that's in here that I did include because the person has not yet been hired, and it was mine to play with. It's my secretary, and we'll chat about that in a moment. So I didn't have the line for the benefits that were included for that, but I just listed the amount.
Okay.
And then there's the Primex savings that's on the bottom of that. So I'm going to pass this out, but probably direct you to the bottom line first, because that's probably what people are most, take that and get that. Interested in.
And this goes front and back.
It goes front and back. And so in going through the lines, line by line, and spending some time with what we have this year, what we have next year, what are the have-tos and what are the get-tos, the biggest piece at the bottom of that, just before the total, is the opportunity that is afforded to us through Primex. Because we have had some pieces that have gone, I will just say, very right. We have a $54,883 credit toward next year, and because of that, they are dropping our premiums by an additional $33,085 per year. So that gives us a savings of $87,948 before we get into all the other cuts, which I have to say made my little heart sing today, because it's like, yes, I'm a whole lot closer. So with that, go ahead.
If I could, just on insurance, no, you finish your thought.
Okay,
Sorry.
so with that, and the other savings that are here, as I went through and said, okay, what, trying to, number one, stay away from instructional lines as much as I could, or if there are lines here that would have been part of that, we have unspent funds this year that I can do some pre-buy ahead. If consumable line isn't completely expended now based on what we needed this year, we're going to pre-buy and take that out of next year, that sort of thing. The only instructional thing that I did cut at this point, because we hadn't run summer school at high school in Valley View, and I had very limited availability for Henry Wilson as it was. I did remove that from the line. If there's a way that we can do that under grant funding, but the number of students that I was going to be able to impact with what was here, we'll still have ESY, this is the regular ed piece. The number of students that I was going to be able to impact with, as I was doing that piece, I was still thinking that I was going to have fairly significant numbers of staff positions that were going to be impacted. At this point, I have an additional $52,000 that I still need to come up with somewhere. I'm pretty confident that by the time we meet next time, that won't be a problem, but I wanted to give you the preliminaries, regardless of which direction we go, because obviously the default budget is also going to give us some constraints that I need to operate under. I'm looking at this being where we need to make some cuts here. So, as I said, the only staff piece I looked at this point, any secretarial help that I get would be a boon, and so looking at cutting that to 20 hours a week without benefits, and so that would be the cost savings there that are reflected. So, I mean, something is better than what I've experienced thus far, so that's okay. So that, I wanted to give you, that's first round, and certainly looking to have the other piece for you on the third. But I'm pretty confident. There's a couple of other pieces that Lori and I were in the middle of researching. I was hoping I was going to have the whole thing to go, done deal, and then she received her phone call, and so this is what we have for right now. Okay. But are there questions about what you have there?
Just an observation, I know Primex is new, or we're new to Primex, being in this pooled risk group. It seems the timing is like exactly 180 degrees of what we need in terms of planning our next school year. Do you know what I mean? So we're looking at September, October is when you start developing the proposed budget for the following school year. Well, Primex is doing their work to then say, hey, customer,
Well,
guess what? You get a credit and your premium is going to be reduced.
Well, this
It's
is
a full 6
because
months later than we
frankly,
need it.
Lori has been pushing ahead to say, okay, now we know that this has been better, so can you review us
So
now?
this isn't even their timing.
So
She's
that we
pushed them.
know that we have this moving forward. And so she pushed really hard to say, look, we're in a better place. Is there anything you can do to reward us for that? And this is the result. So I'm extremely excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was definitely Lori's pushing them. This is not necessarily their timing. That's Lori being a little bit of
glad I asked.
a nudge there, so that was helpful.
I mean, this is just another example of how our fiscal year and the timing by law that we're required to prepare and adopt a budget is just always playing catch-up, cart before the horse, whatever,
Sometimes.
Name you want to put on it.
It's what it is, and so, we
can still
so
influence it.
that's where, asking for what we, and so if we need it sooner next time to be able to, because they've been willing to work with us, perhaps we can get things done differently within the budget process. As we were very new with Primex this year, they weren't terribly willing to give us a whole lot of forecasting up front. It's September, we've been with you for a month, what do you think?
Right.
So this gives us a little bit.
Well, within
More,
the,
yeah.
within the congregation of school districts who do use Primex, we are a pooled risk. So it's not just on their end that they benefit from having pooled risk. It needs to be almost collective bargaining, if you will, with peers.
Mr. Petrie?
Yes, I wouldn't complain too much about the fiscal year because at the county, we're on a calendar year, and in other words, the budget isn't even adopted.
Till March.
And so it cost us $500,000 in TAN notes, for just interest. And that's, that's money that we're just blowing. And we're trying to figure out a way to get them cycled, but it's, it's 18 months of budgeting.
So,
Other questions about this, comments?
No, I think it's nicely done.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. New Hampshire School Board Association workshops.
Yes, I have, because they had assumed that we would be looking at a new board, but just to make you aware, there are board orientation and refresher workshops that are being offered on, I just lost the date.
Right up front.
Where'd it go? Thank you. Wednesday, May 3rd in Concord, and Wednesday, May 10th in Whitefield. I'm guessing Concord might be the more attractive option unless you were already headed north. But they begin at 5 o'clock, and then they have a concurrent session for board chairs in Concord only. And I have the agenda here if you want to take a look at it, and the registration form that I can make copies if anyone wants to attend that, so I can pass it around for you to look
I got
at.
one in the
Yeah,
mail.
we got one in the
Okay.
mail.
Okay, I wasn't sure if everyone had, so
I don't
I'm
remember getting
bringing
one
it
in
to your
the mail.
attention. Okay, well, you can
Just
have
came
mine.
in like this weekend, though.
Yeah.
You can always
I just-
register online, too.
Yeah.
I attended last year. It was
It is good.
very informative, especially to a new board member.
So,
Good session.
Yeah, that's where I get some of my weird ideas.
Is this the one the lawyers
Oh, yeah?
present at?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Barrett, Christina, I think, wasn't it Barrett that presented?
Do we still
Yeah,
have
they
Jerry's
they bring
Ellen
in
as our special
some
editor?
to hold different sessions.
Yes.
What I found extremely powerful was the board members from School Board of the Year, past School Board of the Year award recipients. They come and present and just kind of share, here's how we do things that seems to really work well for us.
Wow.
You might want to consider it. And they'll have like their board chair and their superintendent together present. It's good.
Okay.
So if you are interested in going, I might, if you want me to attend as well, I'm open, so whatever you'd like me to do. Okay.
Old business. Any other new business? Okay. Old business, calendar.
Okay.
Good night.
Two pieces on the calendar. Number one, I wanted to let everyone know, and I know it will be going home from high school and middle school, because of all of the days out, we're going to back Q3 up 1 week. And so the end of Q3, instead of being April 7th, will now be April 14th, with report cards going home on April 21st. So it just backs up 1 week. But rather than have an incredibly short third quarter and a really long fourth quarter, it's going to feel long anyway. But at least this way, it gives us a little bit more equity in the number of days and trying to get the rest of those assessments finished up. So the other piece is that with our weather of the last week, I did have a little bit more latitude than I had used initially when I brought forward end days. So what I am still looking at is for the last day for students to be the 23rd. I would really prefer not to extend it back and just bring everybody back on a Monday. Instructionally speaking, it's probably not the best use of time. The staff did report on Wednesday because we canceled because we'd had an early release already scheduled, and for me to do a delay so that they could get the buses dug out, and then it would have been, come on in, kids, here's a sandwich, go home. And so that, again, instructionally is not the best use. So staff reported, we did have our staff development day, so that's one day that they don't need to make up on the other end of June. So that's why I had done that. So staff will still be reporting the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after students are done. So their last day will be the 28th currently.
What was attendance like for the staff on Wednesday, percentage-wise? Was it good?
It was good. What I saw, I was in all three buildings briefly through the day, and there were a few out, and there were a few that called out with pictures, I'm
Well, that's
standing
why I
up to my
asked,
hips
yeah.
in snow, but for the most part, I'd say we had at least 80%. That's just a ballpark off the top of my head. I would have to go back and look at the numbers, but
Okay.
I wasn't hearing a lot of crickets through the buildings, so.
So it still counted as a...
It counted
day.
as a staff day, yes, it did. We had more than a quorum to count for the professional development day.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. SAU location of staff offices, discussion. We haven't discussed it for quite some time. We took a vote, I think it was last May, to move the offices to campus.
That was the original one.
Mr. Petrie and I have finally, after a while of getting to, trying to do it, have been able to tour all of the buildings, including the annex and the former FLA building, all three schools. And so I honestly can't remember where we were at the last time we discussed it, other than there was a, I'm kind of forgetting.
Well, there was
where we left it.
the last suggestion was an addition to the FLA.
Mhm.
I think that's where we left off, and then it was picked up by you and Mr. Petrie to go and look through the buildings.
Well, I didn't come forward, and correct me if I'm wrong if I say anything out of turn, Joe, with a proposal. I am coming forward with an opinion.
Okay.
The opinion being, after seeing basically every crevice in the school district, I think that we have ample room in this school district to relocate the SAU here. Can it all be under one roof? I don't know the answer to that. But there's enough, in my opinion, after what we saw, I think there's enough room in some buildings, or even two buildings that are fairly close to each other, to relocate those offices on campus. I was in particular surprised with the amount of space at Henry Wilson. I think there's a lot of space at Henry Wilson that can be used for SAU offices.
No, I'm going to just, one of the things that I know I've talked to with you is just, even if we wanted to put them all in the same place, relocating some of our children as well. I think maybe if there was a possibility of putting fourth grade up at Valley View and making that a K-4 building and having more space at Henry Wilson, that would also be another opportunity for putting the lower grades up at Valley View.
So maybe that's one option, to just go through the pros and cons.
When you and I have had that discussion
Yeah.
privately, I had that in
Yeah.
my mind as I walked through Valley View. I'm not sure I necessarily saw that we could do that.
Okay.
I've looked
For
at
the
it.
kindergarten,
Yeah.
took up a bunch of space.
To do that would mean that we would have no growth room, and it would mean condensing our kindergarten classes, which will increase our class sizes there. Not really in favor of increasing kindergarten class sizes. I've looked at it, and I mean, it's not off the table, but my concern would be those kindergarten classes would go up by probably 5 to 6 students each. Not completely unworkable, but certainly not ideal, especially given the population that we're trying to target early, and make sure that we get those pieces in place so that we have the other things and wraparound services moving forward. I think that's the wrong end to start condensing.
Okay.
But again,
Yeah. I just wanted to.
I get that
Throw that thought out there.
everything's on the table.
Yeah.
And I've walked it through several times.
How specific does the board want to get with a directive? I mean, we've already set a directive.
Right.
Move to campus. Vague to an extent.
Well,
Do we want to get more specific?
And we've supported budget adjustments to financially back that up. So the Building and Grounds Committee has done tours. Has the full committee been a part of the tours? Or is it pretty much just been whoever isn't in the buildings all the time?
Well, it's been
It's been 2 members.
Joel and Joe,
us two.
Lori, the principal, and myself,
And Larry.
Okay.
and Larry.
Yeah, Larry too.
Yeah, that's about what the committee
So
was.
is that the right, skill set to come up with various ideas
It's
and then
just
whittle
been a
it down?
tour.
And
There's
then
been
you
no-
make the ultimate decision.
There's been no ideas floated during the tour, it's just been, show us the space.
Mr. Vito?
Did we ever find out exactly how much space we need? I've asked this before, like how many rooms, who needs to be alone, who doesn't have to be alone, how many plugs do you need, all that kind of stuff. We need to know that in order to figure out where to put everybody, or if we can put everybody someplace.
And
I think that's
I
a good thing to put together.
will bring that to you.
I mean,
I
we
guess
certainly
my
can
point-
have a we can set another meeting coming up soon and have those specific conversations. I guess my concern was, I kept hearing, we don't have the space on campus. I absolutely, after touring these buildings, refuse to believe that. I mean, Henry Wilson's using all their space, as you would if you added a couple rooms onto your house. I'm sure you'd find something to put in there. But in my opinion, there are some things that, I mean, for example, one of the things we heard when we were at Henry Wilson was, well, we can't use this space for staff or students, it doesn't have a window. Yet, many windowless rooms and crevices are used for student and staff at Valley View, and have for some time. That's a fact. I mean, we went up there and saw it.
I never heard that requirement.
I don't want to get into real specifics. All I can say is at Henry Wilson in particular, we've really spread out, which one would expect. Like I said, when you have more room, you tend to use it. But I don't think it's unreasonable to say we've already made the decision to move back. And I have to say, Mr. Moody's comments tonight about getting out of, he said, you got to get out of there. He was obviously referring to the SAU building. That is a pretty prevalent opinion throughout this community. We felt that heat last year. We've heard it from constituents and from townspeople over and over that it is time to stop being up in that building and stop spending money on that lease now that we have less children and less staff and move back to campus. We've heard it from staff that it would be advantageous to have their SAU located back on campus where they're more accessible to them. So we as a board have decided it needs to be done. It seems like it's dragging out. And again, it wasn't always easy to get everybody together for the tours, and you kind of get, with the budget season, it kind of got, spaced out a little bit. But what would the board like to see next? Would you like to see the Building and Grounds Committee now meet with SAU staff, or the committee itself with?
I guess it depends on, Ms. Ellen, you can think about this as, what do you need for support to make this happen? Do you need resources? Do you need folks to come up with brainstorm proposals so that you can pro and con list each one of them?
Well,
And then
I
pick
think,
one?
number one, I am looking, is if the board is leaning, we want to see this happen, and I bring forward, okay, here's what I want to do. I really don't want to spend a lot of time putting into this if I'm going to hear, but we wanted you to do that. So I want to make sure that piece, that I'm doing, if you've said this is where we want you, okay. The other piece is that while there is some money in the operating budget for that move, there is not money in the default budget for that
so you need
move.
to see.
So depending upon what happens on the 28th, that may also depend on which choices we make, because it may determine what may need the least amount of modification. This might be more ideal if we could do X, Y, and Z, but if we don't have this, therefore we're doing that. So, again, not to try to put it off, but we won't know what that piece we
I don't
have
know
to
what you
work
have to
with
work
until the
with.
28th.
Yeah.
I mean,
Talk about what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what these associated costs for this move would be.
Well, if I'm looking at a classroom space, then a classroom space would probably need to be modified into potentially 2 offices or more, depending upon who would be there and in which building. Would that need an additional doorway? If we are looking at putting an SAU office into a building, I need to make sure that there is a locking fire door between the SAU and where students are, so that we have a very distinct, as we are public access, that is not the case for student areas. So if I'm going to be in a building, is it one that already has a fire door where we need it? Does the fire door need to be moved depending upon where it falls? Does it put a necessary room on the wrong side of the fire door that students would still need to access? I don't anticipate, I'm not looking at having interior decorators come in and Persian carpets. The issue is going to be if we need to move fire doors, if we need additional doors or partitions because of privacy issues. Part of the big reason why we moved from downtown to where we are currently is that there are people who have personnel discussions that need to be private from others, so I can't just clump everybody together. And I also want to make sure that security is taken care of, and if I'm going to be setting that aside, I need to make sure not only that it's secure from the school standpoint, but if I have to run an incident command post, that I have the wherewithal to do that. And frankly, being in the middle of campus puts that at a disadvantage. Because it makes mobility in and out much more difficult. It doesn't make it impossible. And, you can play the what-if game, and I don't want to go down that road.
You have to think about that.
But certainly have to look at those pieces moving forward and what access looks like if that needs to happen. Because if I get called out to one of the other buildings, I have to actually be able to get from whatever building I'm into the next one. And granted, I do that by walking a lot of times now, but that also, adds another layer. So those are considerations. They're not necessarily obstacles, but they're things that need to be considered. And I have lists, and I've looked at pieces, and I've walked through, and I've done my rule of thumb, and I've taken my tape measure, and
Have you put those thoughts, organized them in the context of what Stan was talking about? What's needed?
I would say most of that is here, because a lot of that, other than as I'm walking, I'm in the buildings, I'm kind of taking mental notation, and a lot of that, frankly, is what happens between probably midnight and 2 a.m. But as
Just
far
don't
as
tweet about it.
putting it all down on paper, I don't have it in a form that I can hand a report to you at this time.
Sure. No, I'm just, but that's, I guess, what my point is do you have the resources available to you? Do you have the right resources available to you to help you with that? So you could go that far until you know whether or not you're working with your
Right.
adopted operating budget or your default budget?
I guess I will say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because frankly, I've not done this part before.
Right.
So.
And I mean, and is Mr. Gordon,
Certainly willing
Right.
to bounce ideas off, we've walked through together, we've done some of those pieces. As far as, his being able to set up, 5 different scenarios for me, I don't know that his time is necessary. We've been chasing a few other pieces that keep gasping
right, more
equipment
pressing
that
issues.
don't want to
So-
keep running, so.
So it sounds like the best place for you to be would probably be on the end of one of the buildings, so that you're not smack in the middle.
I can't be for public access. I have to be
So,
on an accessible
The
end.
5th grade wing, and maybe using a portion of the annex for a conference room, so that you would have that conference
that could
space.
be your
So if you're
emergency
meeting with
plan.
parents and you need a conference space, you could go into the annex building and have a conference space built in there.
So that will
You're
need some
talking
freshening up.
costs. You're talking,
Annex, the only space that's open right now would be the
storage
basement
room.
that's not ADA accessible.
Well, the storage room, you could move the stuff that's in that storage area into the basement with a humidifier. We talked about that.
If I could just take it one step back, so are you now on the same page that maybe the staff that's currently in that building is not going to still be co-located after the move? Or are you still focusing, your efforts towards where can I put everybody still co-located?
I would like as much of the staff to be co-located as possible because of some of the issues that we have just as far as when a member of the public or staff come and need to be dealing with multiple members, for me to say, okay, do this and now go there and then go here. It's potentially an additional security risk if you have people who may or may not be happy
Yeah.
with how things are happening, to have them going from building to building to building to finish what they need to do or not do as well.
That's why my suggestion was
yeah.
there, and then those people, even if you are co-located, those people could come to you in that conference area.
Well,
Mr.
right,
Frieda.
that's just a matter of looking at how things are done now because of what the situation is and saying we have to match that, but we don't necessarily have to match that. We have to match the conditions. So pulling everybody into a conference room is probably easier than having a person go door to door, because they can do it when you're in the same building now.
Or,
Which is why
conference call.
Right.
If you could get together what your absolute minimum needs are to meet all the requirements and the safety and all that stuff, then we can sort of decide how many rooms we actually need and how close to go they.
And how much modification that would or would not require.
Right.
So I guess let us know what help you need.
Yeah, and then I would like to
Really
a couple of
try.
different scenarios to decide, or unless you have a maximum one that you just think is great.
the first meeting in April, which is the 4th,
Third,
3rd,
4th,
Third.
3. Yep.
4/3, we will be restructuring because we will have had an election.
Correct.
Maybe.
Jeez.
No more snowstorms.
And we'll be, redoing committee assignments and things like that. So, do you want to see the Buildings and Grounds Committee meet another time prior to April 3rd?
It's kind of hard to predict who's going to be here.
I don't necessarily want to see them meet. If you feel the need to meet, I think you should, but
But even if you, as the Buildings and Grounds Committee, sorry, I didn't mean
That's fine.
to interrupt you, send Ruth Ellen some ideas of what you think, or where, I don't mind sending, I think I put my thoughts out, so that might be an idea for us to do as well.
Are you looking for me to have proposals for the 3rd? Because I also have nominations and the rest of the budget to do for the
No.
3rd as
No,
well.
that's-
So I just wanted to be clear on your expectation.
I would
Okay.
suggest that something comes soon, because if there are any modifications
I mean,
that you can't do,
Certainly I would say for the 17th.
or that you must
But-
do.
And really any modifications, because they are currently used as classroom spaces, couldn't happen until school is over anyway.
Right.
You know-
What I was, sorry, Stan, I
Go
wanted to, what I was going for was any unexpended fund balance, you could put some electricity in or something.
Well, there's
to-
electricity in
right.
all the rooms, but.
Right, but one of the things we heard when Dr. Pfeiffer was here was that there's only 2 outlets in the 5th grade wing in each classroom. You would need more outlets.
Correct, yes.
So,
They-
things like that.
Extension cords are frowned upon.
Those are reasons. Well, so what I was going to say is, we must know what the capacity of each of the buildings are and what the current enrollment is in each of those buildings, so we could figure out which one theoretically has more space available. That doesn't mean the configuration is right, but
Right,
it's a good way to
configuration versus
start.
capacity, I want to make sure that I don't treat the kids as cordwood. So
Right.
I'm looking more at program than capacity, but yes, I understand exactly what
You
you're
know what I'm
saying.
saying?
Yep.
I'm at the point where I just want to say, make it happen for the least amount of dollars as possible. I think we need to get creative. I think you can get creative and make it happen. I mean, when Valley View was being built, we had an SAU located in the 5th grade wing. My office that year moved 4 times because of renovations that were happening to Henry Wilson. We have to get into the mindset that, yes, this can happen. Yes, we can do this. I don't really want to nitpick and say, well, I think Diana should be around that corner. I just don't want to go there. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I looked at the 5th grade wing, I thought, oh my gosh, there is a lot of space here. There's space that used to be used for Title I that at one time probably had 7 people in there. I mean, again, they were at little desks and everything. But there's 2 offices there. There's 3 offices toward the very front of the building that used to be a school office. There's another Title I office directly across that was used for Title I. That's just one example. I mean, we have 2 secretaries at Henry Wilson. One's called a registrar now. I'm not really sure that's needed. I mean, I don't want to get into that nitpicky stuff, but that's the stuff I was thinking about as I was thinking, okay, we need to move the SAU office. So where can we do it? And when we go in knowing that, yeah, we need to move it. I don't know. I don't want to get too nitpicky on which crevice everybody lands in, but at the same time, there is space. I mean, if you want to get real specific, in which I don't really want to, but I'll just, you can combine a couple of the special ed teachers from 2 different grade levels together in one room to provide support. That has been done before. It's being done in other schools, so it's not like we can't do it,
And I think what you'll find, if you can get over the hump of co-locating, right? And I think I said this before, but I'm not sure if you were here already. There's, right now, right, we look to save about $30,000 per year after the move is complete and done, as long as we don't go over what we are projecting for potential costs for the move. That's per year. I mean, we're talking at ongoing savings reflective of what we're currently spending now. We have to find more opportunities like that. So the other benefits beyond the cost that I foresee, and I thought I articulated these, when the staff is no longer co-located, you have to plan ahead a little bit, the conversations that you need to have. That survey that you gave us back a few months ago, not one person mentioned picking up the phone and having the conversation. I mean, it literally neglected the fact that I like that I can get up from my office and go down the hall and ask a question. You can do that over the phone as well. The other piece is, if you pick which schools, or I should say, if you pick one school, it may have a negative perception of, oh, well, this is where, we're going to have to deal with this or whatever. But if the team is dispersed between the 3 schools, right, and they're still having their meetings together with each other on a planned basis, it only improves the networking abilities within the district. Just the fact that they might take their breaks in the same area as other employees within the district.
That
they'll
doesn't really
coordinate.
happen at the SAU, but, okay, with other employees within the district? Okay.
Right, the intangible benefits that you'll get by co-locating dispersed throughout the district. I'm just saying, I really encourage the team, whether it's yourself doing, all of it and then selling it, or if you're gonna take some of the folks that are moving their office and getting them as stakeholder management there on the move, is to embrace this idea of, because that's where you're gonna be able to make the move at the lower cost. You might not have enough money to move everybody and keep everybody in one spot together. And I just foresee, I don't want to waste too much time on trying to achieve that one goal now.
I would say my first thought is the security piece and being able to, wherever the SAU staff is, to be able to secure that apart from the school building piece because of the security, the public access.
But don't our teachers have to be just as secure as anyone else? So if they're secure, the SAU staff is secure.
But we don't have the general public coming into classroom spaces that aren't escorted, that aren't. And so if I'm going to have somebody who ends up in a classroom space as apart from being separated, because we do have to have public access, then I also then have to have somebody who's taking time to escort, which I wouldn't necessarily have had otherwise. So that, again, it's just,
Can I ask?
Sorry, I think my microphone
No, I
is
think
bad.
Stan
sorry.
asked a while ago.
So maybe the thing to do would be to look at each of the schools, find the absolute best scenario for in each of those buildings, pretend nobody lives in any of them. Find the best place that you find is secure and the number of rooms you need and all that stuff, and then work backwards and say, what do I have to do to clear this space, and which one is less difficult and which one is less most cost
absolutely.
effective. And pick
And
that
that's-
as your solution.
that's what I've been
Yeah.
working on.
My question is, are there fire doors, are there two sets of fire doors, so Kim Seward's old room and Title I, and then there's a set of fire, is
There's a
that
set of fire doors at the end of
the hallway?
the sixth grade hallway,
Yeah.
before you get to the fifth grade hallway. There is not a set, there is a set that goes then into the fourth grade hallway. And so that entire hall, which frankly may be more space than we would need,
Right, but what,
and would also then take a full bathroom, the gang bathroom type, away from school use.
right, but if,
So,
just a suggestion, if you move those fire doors back down, for some reason I want to say there were fire doors on the other side of that hallway, on the other side of, so there's some on the end of the sixth grade, and I think that other doorway, I think there's another doorway there, where the addition came on. For the fifth
I know
grade
where you're
wing.
saying, but
Yeah.
No.
there's not a
No?
set of doors
No.
there.
But there's nothing saying that the fire doors we have there can't be pushed back there.
And that's something I've looked at, but again, wanting to make sure, so.
Yeah.
I'm still,
Yeah. Are you seeing where I'm at? Yeah.
I think, just to wrap it up, we're going to be restructuring on April 3rd, and then we can have a conversation that evening about, the task of what further task this board wants to see, or that board wants to see from the Buildings and Grounds Committee as it relates to, because we didn't even look at grounds. I mean, it just really wasn't the time of year to do it. We should continue to do, we should continue to do that, but what the board wants to see in reference to this topic, the committee do further. So is that fair?
Sure.
Okay.
so.
Strategic Planning Committee.
So, right now, I think this is probably two-part, because I know that you had some pieces that you wanted to bring last time too. I don't know if that's still, just to give an update. I'm going to be putting out this week to the general public, kind of a call for pulling together the first committee. I have a flyer that's being worked on now. I have an administrative intern who is working on her administrator's license, who's kind of working with me a little bit on pulling some of the pieces together for getting this started. So we do have a little bit of help, which has been fun. And we're going to be putting out pieces that can be put up around town, that can be, for instance, at the library, at town hall. I'm planning on tucking them into annual reports that are given out at the voting place. I can't stand there and say, here, take this, here, take this. But I can at least make it available so that people know that the opportunity is there. We're looking at probably a couple meetings a month for the next few months. But it doesn't mean if someone can't commit to that full-time that they couldn't be part of that process. We're also looking at putting together some pieces for the committee to review at that first meeting, which has not yet been set, of a survey that we'd like to put out to the public of what are some of the things that you're looking for. I mean, certainly I've got, a very clear picture of where I'd like things to go, but if we are going to have community ownership and support of what we're doing, it can't just be my plan. It has to be something that community members are invested in. I want parents, I want students part of this. I want people whose only tie to the school is their tax bill, because I want all of the voices as part of what it is that we're doing. And so that will be going out this week, and I know that this board had talked about wanting to set some goals, and whether you want to have those set as, pieces that you're pointing the plan toward, or you want to say, these are the goals and everything has to fit into. I mean, no plan can come forward that doesn't get approved by the school board to go into implementation. So, but again, I also don't want it to be, the tracks that are being built and your goals are here and we end up there. And we'll also have board representation on that committee. So however you see fit to pull that piece together, my real desire is to make sure that this is a community plan. I've seen what happens to plans that tend to be a little bit more administratively driven, and then as soon as the administration changes, it gathers dust. And I want to make sure that whatever we put together fully outlives my tenure, that this is something that becomes a living document that moves forward for the district. Shelf art, we have enough of.
Thank you.
So,
This will be one of the committees then that when we reorganize as a board, as we always do the meeting after the election, you'll want one school board member with an alternate or two active school board members? What's the thought?
I would
Just so we
I
have a
would say
list.
two.
Two.
Yeah. Two, and you might want to have an alternate to the two, if that's, but that may be more commitment. There's only 5 of you, and I am aware of that.
And then meet twice a month as a leadership committee, but it could stem to additional.
Certainly, subgroups, subcommittees may be meeting apart from, and not all of those meetings necessarily have to be face-to-face. Some of those may very well be collaborative, online, digitally.
And you're shooting for completion over this, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I would like to have a plan in as solid a draft as we can to come to the board September, October, so that we have it to guide the budget process for next year. Now, that's pretty ambitious, and whether or not we can get that done in that amount of time, I think we can probably get the overarching goals, and I think we can probably get some of the budget driver pieces completed at that point. There may be some other goals that are a little bit more long-term that may not be completely solid by October, but I think at least stage 1 could be done by then, and I think it's important, particularly looking at a more thorough, I mean, you have kind of the one-page wonder CIP, but there are other pieces that need to be included in that. We need a full inventory of what we have, when it was purchased, what's its life expectancy, what are we looking at to deal with the eventualities. We've had some failures. Could we have anticipated those? Maybe if we'd gone back and gone, oh, that was purchased, yep, it's probably going to die here. Some of those we need to really plan out. I have the big pieces that I know are coming that, like the roof, that's huge. But there are some other pieces that we can certainly be doing a closer job of, all right, if we know this was purchased here, it was installed here, we're looking at, okay, here we need to start planning for, and we should know if we get to this point that we've truly been favored and, we're on borrowed time. And so.
Other questions?
Nice.
Process for accessing the 2.5% emergency fund.
When I met with Commissioner Edelblu, that was one of the pieces that he was planning to research and get back to me on. And as of yet, I've not heard back on that piece. So I will reach back out to him and see if there's anything more. I know full well that he's had a few other things on his plate that he's been juggling, but just to see if there's some more guidance, because I'm sure I'm not the only superintendent who's looking to make sure that I have a little bit better handle on that going into, you know, hopefully never needing to use it, but to know under what circumstances I can if I do.
Any other old business? Public participation? Nobody? Okay. Well, our next meeting is April 3rd, 6:30 here in the library. We will have an election next week.
Maybe.
No.
We will.
We
I'm
will
gonna
have an election.
Say positively. Mr. Petrie and Mrs. Moran, good luck in the election. Linda, good luck to you. Good luck to Mr. King, who may be watching at home. And I'll just say that it's been a privilege over the last year to be the board chair, so thank you for that. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public, back into non-public 2 for
Back in
personnel.
non-public too, yes.
Do we need, yeah, we
Oh,
do need a
so
motion.
if you recessed, you.
We recessed.
If you recessed.
So we don't need to.
You don't
Yeah,
need to,
we're just gonna
correct.
go back
Okay.
in.
So the motion
So-
is to adjourn the public meeting.
A motion to adjourn the public meeting. So moved.
Well, you.
No, we can't,
No,
we
we
have
can't.
to, we have to go back into
Going
public.
back into.
No, we're
Because
just,
we
we're
can't
just,
have
We're just going to say
we're
goodnight.
gonna recess from, or stop public and go back into non-public. So thanks, folks, for tuning in.
Kelly, do you need